What's up, guys? I'm Mike D'Antonio, founder and CEO of StockedUp. Welcome back to the Stocks with Mike and Tom show. We have an awesome episode for you guys here today. There was some important news that came out over the weekend regarding the market. In this video, we're going to be talking about all the important stocks that we'll be watching for the market for next week. We're going to be talking about some momentum plays, some tech plays, gold and silver, of course, and then also the new stimulus news, and then the increasing U.S. and China tension. So make sure you stick around to the end of this video. We do have some important plays to go over, but unfortunately, Tom is not going to be with us today. So it's just going to be me today. Tom couldn't make the episode for today, but we still have all the information as usual. So if you guys are new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to see our daily videos on your YouTube homepage every single day. So the most important news that happened this weekend, and it actually happened today, so today's Sunday, is Steve Mnuchin said that they are looking to get their new stimulus bill done quicker than anticipated. So pretty much they are looking to pass a new bill. He said that the Democrats and the Republicans should work on this bill rather quickly. I mean, they always say that, but overall, there's pretty much positive news with the market overall with a new stimulus bill. If we do see another stimulus bill, you would think it'd be good for the markets. You know, we are pretty high right now on the S&P 500 as well as the NASDAQ. We were just at record highs 2 weeks ago at the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, and Dow. Both had huge recoveries. So you would think that the passing of a new stimulus bill would generally be pretty bullish for the markets. But keep in mind, nothing has happened yet. So yes, this sounds like good news on a new stimulus bill. It is good news, but until it gets passed, it's not actually good news. So for example, right now it looks, like we might get a new stimulus bill sometime this week, right? He said that they are ready to have their final version by tomorrow, which is Monday, right? But if the Democrats make a counter to that bill, and then the Republicans and Democrats are going back and forth, that can actually drop the markets big time. So keep that in mind. Nothing is done until it's done, especially with politics. And then also there are increasing U.S. and China tensions. I'm sure a lot of you guys already know that last week, the U.S. ordered the Chinese consulate to close down their embassy in Houston, right? And China already retaliated, and I know that the U.S. actually raided that embassy in Houston right at the deadline that China was supposed to be out by. So, obviously that's not the best news. And historically, when the U.S. and China are fighting, typically the market drops. So like if we go back to a chart of the S&P 500 back in December of 2018, we can see there was a pretty large drop. So I'm going to pull this up on the chart right here. So back in December of 2018, let me pull this up right here. Yep, right there. So right here was anywhere from October to December, especially of 2018, the market really dropped. And that was because of the U.S.-China trade war. The U.S. and China tensions were really bad at that time. So definitely keep that in mind. So if we do see China and the U.S. continue to retaliate against each other, you would think that can definitely drop the markets again too. So definitely keep that in mind. And even, Pompeo was slamming China last week too. So yeah, so keep that in mind too. And then now for the Discord member of the day. So after the member of the day, we're going to get into the momentum plays for tomorrow. But today's member of the day is Benry. So Benry is an amazing member of the Discord, StockedUp Discord community, always sharing positive vibes, good news, and overall a very positive person. So we're very grateful to have Benry in the Discord. So yeah, thank you, Benry, for being very positive and a great asset to the Discord community. So with the momentum plays for tomorrow, the first one is AMD. AMD had a killer week last week, finished up almost 17% on Friday, which is absolutely insane. And AMD really popped because Intel fell. Obviously, they're major competitors. Intel fell on bad earnings a lot. Intel really fell. AMD is really popping too, and they have earnings coming up next week. But overall, let me see. So overall, the levels we should be watching for AMD, they really were struggling to break the $70 level on Friday. So if AMD can break above that level, this stock probably has a lot more room to run. So if AMD breaks above $70, Tom and I are really going to consider trading it to the upside, whether that be buying calls or buying the stock. So if it breaks $70, we would be bullish on AMD. And then going back with Boeing, Boeing actually had some downwards momentum, and they also have earnings coming up. So Boeing, I would say like the major level to watch is the 174 level. So if it can break below 174 or even $173.50, either of those levels, I would be pretty bearish on Boeing. If you want to play it safe, you can wait for it to break below $173.50. If you want to play a little bit more aggressive, you could wait for it to break below just 174. So if it breaks below that, we would consider buying puts or shorting the stock. And then last but not least, we have Goldman Sachs. So the banking sector has been pretty mixed lately. You know, we had stocks like JP Morgan, Citigroup, pretty flat last week. Wells Fargo also flat, but we had Goldman Sachs, which is one of the top financial stocks, actually falling. So this is very interesting. So if we take a look at Goldman Sachs, we can see, let me go to an intraday chart. They obviously have some downwards momentum, but if they could break below that $201 level, there would most likely be a lot more room to the downside with Goldman Sachs. So if it can break below 201, we would consider buying puts or shorting Goldman Sachs. And I know everyone has been asking me lately, you know, Mike, what do you think about gold and silver just exploding? You know, especially, you know, both gold and silver, but they're both really exploding. Silver went from about $18 last week to $21.20, which is just a crazy move for a commodity like silver. And then we look at gold too, went from about 170 to 179. So overall, crazy growth to the upside. And the way I look at it is typically what happens is when investors are scared about the market overall, historically they would resort to commodities like gold and silver because they're known to hold their value, right? You're not going to buy silver and see a 200% return in a year, right? It's just normally it's not how it works. So typically investors, when they are scared about the market overall, if they're scared about a potential downturn in the market, if they're scared about inflation, or if they're just scared with the overall market, historically they would resort to commodities like gold and silver. And of course, when investors resort to any specific security or asset, those prices rise. So the way I look at this growth in gold and silver is that investors are, you know, they might be a little scared with the market right now, and it rightfully so. You know, we did have a major recovery with the market for such a short period of time. You know, we still have a lot of people unemployed. You know, we have U.S. and China trade tensions, you know, really escalating. We have earnings coming up, which recently haven't been the best. We saw stocks like Microsoft really tank on it, Intel, Tesla. You know, we've seen a good amount of earnings drops, and you know, of course, that's not the best. And you know, who knows if this new stimulus bill doesn't get passed, that can really drop the markets too. And then on top of that, we saw investors resorting to bonds. So we saw ETFs like TLT start to rise slightly, which you know, is also another sign of when investors are scared about the market overall, they resort to bonds too, because it's a guaranteed return. Like for example, with the stock market, an investor might want, of course, like a stock is always going to have, or most of the times going to have a higher percent return than a bond would. However, stocks can drop very quickly, like we saw back in March, right? We saw a 30% dip, one of the fastest dips ever. So if investors are scared about that, they will resort to bonds because instead of, you know, potentially losing money with stocks, they're at least getting that guaranteed return by buying the bonds. So we saw bonds rise last week. We saw precious metals rise last week, like gold and silver. So really the way I look at all of this is investors might be a little bit scared with the market right now, especially with earnings season ahead. So, you know, the way I look at it is gold and silver going to continue up? You know, no one knows the top, no one knows the bottom, but how it looks right now, gold and silver are definitely showing a lot of promise They're showing a lot of upside potential. And if you really want to play it safe, you can always just wait for a breakout. So for example, with silver right now, it's sitting at around $21.20. You can tell yourself, hey, if silver breaks or SLV breaks above $21.45 or $21.50 anytime next week, then I'll buy it. I'll buy the breakout. And if it doesn't, then oh well, it's just no trade. And you can see the same thing with GLD. If it breaks above, let's say, $179.25, then I'd buy it. You know, you could just kind of like buy the breakout. So that's the way I would play it. You know, no one's ever going to call the tops or bottoms, especially in a a volatile asset like gold and silver. So definitely keep that in mind. You know, right now it looks like there is a lot more upside potential with GLD and SLV, but like I said, no one can call the top or the bottom. So now with the $3.57 million options trade for this week, there was a total of $3.57 million put into this option, and it expires this Friday. So we're looking at the AMD 75 strike calls. They expire this week, July 31st. So like I said, about $3.57 million put into this position. It's hard to tell whether they are longing or shorting these options. Pretty much just like stocks, with options, you could either buy the option or you could short the option. If you buy the option, you want the option to go up. If you short the option, you want the option to fall. So it's really tough to tell whether they are longing this option or shorting it. AMD has so much upwards momentum right now where I'm pretty neutral, because they're buying this option that is $5 out of the money. Like you can't even see that. You can't even see the $75 level on the AMD 6-month chart. So it's really hard to tell if they're buying this option or shorting. Overall, I would just wait for AMD. Like if it breaks above $70, then I would consider buying this option. But if it doesn't, then I wouldn't buy it. So that's another simple way to play it. Pretty much just keep an eye on the AMD 75 strike calls that expire this week, July 31st. Just because there's $3.57 million into this play, that does not just mean to blindly buy the play. You have to wait and make sure that there's like confirmation that AMD actually has that upwards momentum, because you don't want to buy this option if the big money behind this is actually shorting the option. So keep that in mind. So now with the comments from the previous episode. So with the first comment, we have Skeezy saying, hey guys, I love your analysis. I've been using your methods to try my own projections with some decent wins. NVDA has left me stumped. It's been going sideways for the last 2 weeks, and the RSI is flat. What do you guys see in your chart? So Tom isn't with us today, so I will definitely take this analysis real quick. Overall, we could see, obviously, there is a huge upwards trend with NVIDIA overall, right? There's obviously a huge upwards trend, has a lot of strength, but we could also see on this just as a support line I drew, they are approaching, you could see they've had this support line since the middle of March, right? They came close to bouncing on it a couple of times. It almost bounced on it on the beginning of May, and it had a nice solid bounce at the end of June, and it looks like we're approaching that line again. Now, NVDA is a solid stock, solid company. It's definitely a powerhouse. It doubled from its lows during March. It's definitely a powerhouse, right? They're a great company overall. So, here's the thing with it. I wouldn't necessarily call this like a great short position, but I wouldn't call it a great long position either. One, given the overall market, but also two, like if it's such a powerhouse, you really don't want to short those stocks. So overall, I'm pretty neutral on NVDA, and to be completely honest with you, I don't see any like great great opportunity to the upside or the downside with this play. So sometimes with certain stocks, it's just better to have no play rather than to force a play. You know what I mean? So for me with NVDA, I'm neutral on it, and I don't feel the need to force like a sentiment to the upside or the downside. So we have Grown saying, I'm really impressed with you guys. Keep up the great work. So thank you so much for that comment. With the next comment we have, let's see. We have Martinez saying, so I've been watching for the past 3 weeks. I don't do options yet. I only focus on stock trading. Do you guys not do too much of just stock trading? So all of the analysis we ever do applies to both stock and options trading. So Tom and I mainly trade options. We do trade a little bit of stocks here and there, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing. You know, we're trading the same things, whether you're trading stocks or options. At the end of the day, it's the same thing. It's just a different way of trading it. So for example, with the AMD 75 strike call options that we mentioned earlier in this video, I mentioned the AMD 75 strike calls that expire this week, July 31st. And the way we look at it is, you know, we are pretty much waiting for AMD to break or at least show upwards momentum, right? If AMD shows upwards momentum on Monday, then these, you know, whoever's putting $3.5 million into the play most likely longed the option, right? However, if, you know, AMD gaps down on Monday or isn't really showing any momentum to the upside, then whoever traded these options most likely shorted them. So pretty much if AMD has upwards momentum tomorrow morning, you don't have to buy calls, but you could just buy the stock. So pretty much any stock we mention we like calls on, feel free to just buy the stock. Any stock we mention we like puts on, feel free to short that stock. So pretty much whether you're trading options or stocks, at the end of the day, we're trading the same thing. We're just using different vehicles. With the next comment we have Ravi saying, you guys are awesome. What's the best way to learn technical analysis? So there are a lot of ways. And honestly, there's so many ways and so many different forms of technical analysis. You know, you can look at candlestick patterns. You can look at Fibonacci's. You can look at, you know, SMAs, RSI. You can look at trend lines. There's so many ways of using it. And to be honest, most of them are just like a waste of time in my opinion, right? There's certain things that work. Everyone has their own strategy. Some people do very well with technical analysis. But for me personally, I just like to stick to like a plain chart. I don't like any like SMAs or EMAs or RSI or stochastics or anything crazy like that. I know Tom likes it. Tom uses like SMAs and EMAs, and that's awesome if it works great for him. But for me, I just like to stick to like simple trend lines and like no other indicators on my chart besides the implied volatility. I do have this straddle drop indicator, but that's just a custom thing I wrote, and I don't really use it too much. But overall, pretty much I just like to stick to trend lines. And to learn that, there's a lot of ways. You know, there's books you can pick up. I've never read a book on technical analysis. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there, and probably best of all, there's a site called investopedia.com. That'll be your best friend. Like literally any question you could have in the market, type in like if you have a question like, what's a straddle in options trading? Look up straddle options trading Investopedia, and it'll give you a great explanation. With the next comment we have, let's see. So we have Mikey saying, I'm new here. It's my first week with you, and I want to say thank you for all of the insight on the market. And your plays are great, very clear, in depth, and to the point. One love, and may everyone have their portfolio covered in green. So thank you so much for that comment, Mikey. It means a lot, and definitely keep up that great work. With the next comment we have, let's see. Next comment we have Just saying, how do you guys feel about Apple tomorrow? So this was on Thursday's video, but overall, I'm feeling relatively bearish with Apple in the tech sector right now. I think overall there is a high probability that we see a dip in the market, and that does not mean crash. That does not mean the S&P 500 is going to go down to $220. That doesn't mean the Dow is going to, break below 20,000. But overall, how it stands right now, I think we are a little bit overdue for a correction. With earnings season coming up, with the whole China problems, the market overall is very overextended. The what do you call it? NASDAQ really, it's just so high right now. You know what I mean? I don't think the market's going to necessarily crash, but I do think we will see a dip. And especially if this stimulus, if Republicans and Democrats fight about this, I think that'll be even another catalyst as to why the market can fall. So in regards to what I'm expecting with the market, that does not mean I think the market's going to fall tomorrow. No one really knows what a stock's going to do tomorrow. Just because I'm bearish or slightly bearish on the tech sector or market overall or certain stocks overall, that doesn't mean they have to fall tomorrow. So for example, let's say I was bearish with Intel. That doesn't mean I think it's going to fall the very next day. From now for the next 2 weeks, I think we can definitely see a dip in the market, but that doesn't mean that the market's going to fall tomorrow necessarily. You know what I mean? And especially with futures nowadays, we might see futures open up 400 points. And then by the time the actual market opens, we might see futures down 200 points. So we are in like a very volatile, like weird market. But overall, from now for the next 2 weeks, I am relatively bearish. So with the last question we have, Hunter saying, awesome video. It was so nice to see some movement in the market today. Hopefully we can have more days with movement like this. Absolutely. So Hunter was referring to Thursday, which was definitely a great day for trading. We definitely did very well last week. So yeah, overall, I mean, we're looking good, Hunter. If we look at tech stocks like Apple and Microsoft, even Amazon, Google, they're definitely starting to trend down slightly. But it's definitely not going to be just a straight shot down. So if we do see the market fall, we're not just going to see a straight drop like we saw for the first week of the COVID breakout back in the middle of February, right? We're not just going to see a straight drop. I'm expecting something more along the lines of the middle of March with the SPY, like how we saw like the market would gap down and run up, gap down, run up, gap down, run up. We actually saw a lot of green days when the market fell back in February and March. So I'm kind of expecting the same thing. So definitely keep that in mind. So if you guys have any questions, let us know in the comments down below. If you guys want to trade the same options that Tom and I trade every single day, click the Stocked Up Options Alerts link in the description down below. Tom and I are so grateful for all of your guys' support. Thank you so much for hitting that like button, subscribing, and commenting. So thank you guys so much. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments down below. Other than that, thanks for watching.